Hi there, you're on Gossip Says channel. Enjoy watching, subscribe and like it. It's growing our community. Story 1. Op feels envious of the relationship her husband has with their child. It looks very comically shameful. Original post on our True Off Micist November 4th, 2022. I'm envious of the relationship my child has with my husband, and I wish my husband still treated me the same. I love my child, but I can't help but feel a twinge of envy whenever I see him interact with my husband. I'd never fault him for it. He has the dad that every kid should have. The dad that lights up at the sight of you and will show up to every sports match and will schedule dad and son outings on the weekend. The trouble I'm having is that it used to be me. I used to be the one that lit up my husband's face. I used to be the one he'd make time to do things with. But I'm not anymore. Before having kids, I never was worried about being pushed to the sidelines. The love a parent has for their kids is a different type of love than they have for their spouse. And it is, but I didn't realize there would be a cap on the quantity. There is no love left for me. I get the tidbits, the scraps, the leftovers. We've been married for 16 years at this point. Didn't even have our child until 10 years in. We had a strong marriage. We made time for one another. Went on dates. Had exciting, passionate, mind-motion-using sex 3 to 5 times a week. Would greet each other with a smile, hug, and a kiss when the other got home. Then around age 3, poof, it was gone. Now when my husband arrives home, I get a placating pat on the back or kiss on top of my head, while our child gets an excited open arms hug spin around while happily screeching daddy. If I try to give my husband a real kiss, he'll turn his cheek and say he just got home and is stressed. There's no more date nights. We don't live near family who could babysit, and he isn't comfortable having someone we don't know super well watch the kiddo until they're older. Sex is now 3 to 4 times per month. If I try to initiate, it's a turn off for him because I'm too forward and eager. I come across as desperate. So I wait, and wait, and wait, for whenever my husband remembers that I happen to be around and he should throw me a boner every once in a while. It's not like we haven't talked about it. There are no secrets. I try to be more understanding of his work stress, and he says he'll be more receptive towards my needs. That'll last a week until going back to the status quo. This morning I wake up and roll over to kiss my husband good morning, and he puts a hand out to stop me, saying he's busy on his phone with a work text. And he was. I read the text. But not 1 minute later our son ran into our room and jumped up. My husband immediately put down that oh so important work text to hug and snuggle. So this is my life, where I set a daily timer to allow myself to cry for 15 minutes when no one else is around. And every time I see my child's face light up at the sight of his dad, I feel so much joy, but also deep down I wonder why we both can't be loved. I don't have a cap on how much love I can feel or give. My love language is physical touch, and I feel duped. The epitome of the late 30s housewife cliché, whose husband is sick of her. I never knew a person could feel such vast loneliness while sitting less than 3 feet away from someone who vowed to spend the rest of their lives together. This fucking sucks. Edit. This got a lot more attention than expected. I appreciate the helpful comments. I'm going to have one more conversation with my husband, basically laying everything out and insisting on couples counseling. During our past conversations, I did express myself fully and things would get better for a bit, then go back to sucking. I think I'm at the point where I'm not willing to go back to our new status quo, so that'll be different. Of course, this being Reddit, there were also a lot of off-the-wall assumptions that I'll address. I'm not jealous of my child. I purposefully chose the word envy because it's a feeling of wanting what someone else has, whereas jealous has a threatening connotation to it and involves resentment. There's absolutely no resentment here. To those saying I'm going to go crazy, I would never hurt my child, nor have I ever. My husband is also not a danger to me. I have never cheated, nor have I gotten fat and lazy. For those wondering why my husband has the sudden change, I did reply to one commenter shortly after posting about my husband's terrible childhood, and he thought the toddler years would be difficult for him to process. But we seem to be stuck with a huge wall between us now. My husband is in individual therapy 12 years, but I am currently not. I'll have to look into online options since I don't have a sitter. I have my own hobbies and group of friends that I go out with, but I'd still enjoy spending time with a husband who wants me. Otherwise, we're just awkward roommates. No, I'm not a sex-crazed maniac. Didn't realize wanting weekend sex and maybe once during the week was considered unreasonable to some. It never was a problem before, and my husband hasn't really discussed it with me now. Just rebuffed and avoided me. Lastly, I'm not a mooch living off my husband's hard work. While I mentioned being a housewife, that doesn't mean I don't work. I left my regular full-time job after having the baby since my pay wouldn't cover daycare. But I've transitioned to running my own company online while taking care of my child and keeping the house up. I'm making over twice as much as I was pre-baby while still doing all the housewife stuff. I can be fully self-sufficient if need be. Please subscribe, leave comments, rate videos, and click the bell not to miss my videos. Update post on our True Off Mic is December 19, 2022. Update. I'm envious of the relationship my child has with my husband, and I wish my husband still treated me the same. Even though I shouldn't have been, I was quite surprised at all the negativity I received. Comments saying how I was the problem, had unrealistic expectations, or even were comparing me to a book character who offs her children. It was also eye-opening how many people thought having a healthy relationship was a fairy tale or that I was living in a romance novel. Also, it was never about me being jealous of our child. It was a way to show the juxtaposition of how opposite I'm treated versus the capacity of affection that's possible. So many people glossed over that and decided to make their own narrative. On to the update. I ended up showing my husband the post that evening and sat in silence while he read it and everyone's comments. Partway through, I noticed tears falling down. He told me he didn't realize I felt this way. I asked how it could be a surprise when I've literally told him this more than once. I told him I was at my breaking point. I felt like I was put on a shelf, stuck in suspended animation, waiting for the time he remembers I'm around. He ended up calling his therapist, and my husband invited me to sit in on an emergency therapy session the next day with him. Basically, in their sessions, they've been focusing on healing my husband's relationship with his childhood so that he can be a good father instead of an avoidant detached parent. Being around our child at the same age my husband's trauma started has been extremely triggering for him, and he's been putting up lots of walls and internalizing his feelings. What has also happened is that my husband has been mentally focused so much on his past and childhood, he's shut down all affection toward me. He's built an emotionally numb bubble to live in as a coping mechanism. In the session, my husband said that reading my post was a wake-up call and made him realize he was about to lose me. He doesn't want a divorce and wanted me to ask any questions I have in this safe space. The answers I got were that there is an element of depression but no self-destructive coping mechanisms like infidelity, gambling, drugs, etc. I can only take my husband's word for it. His therapist did say that he sees no indicators of those. The therapist focuses on my husband's type of trauma, so I can only trust his expertise as well. So while my husband's therapist won't see us as a couple, he said having me attend a session was beneficial since he was only getting one side of the relationship dynamics and was under the impression all was wellish, or at least not at a breaking point. His therapist gave us a recommendation for a trauma couples therapist that we've made an appointment for. We left the emergency sessions with some actionable tips and reading material for me to better understand what was going on. My husband has had a few one-on-one sessions with his therapist since the one with me, and he shared they're working on him being more present in our relationship instead of focusing only on our child. I'm hopeful for our upcoming couples session. In the past, I never wanted to go to couples therapy because it's portrayed in media that both sides air grievances about the other and treat the other spouse like a verbal punching bag. I don't find that helpful, but after talking with our couples therapist on the phone, we're going to focus on strategies to rebuild intimacy with one another and go from there. No more living like awkward roommates. There's still lots of love in our relationship that wasn't being given enough oxygen to thrive. We have some work to do but are both committed to working together. TLDR, things are hopeful. Not sorry if that disappoints you. Story 2. AIDA for telling my soon-to-be Mil that my engagement ring is cursed. The 11th of November 2021, IF26 just got engaged. My soon-to-be Mil is a nightmare. We are currently renovating a part of our place and she has been lent a key in the meantime because she keeps coming over uninvited under the guise of helping clean up. But she really just likes to snoop and interfere. I do a martial art and take my engagement ring off before class. I came home from an afternoon class one day and my engagement ring was not in the jewelry dish that I usually leave it in. I asked her about it and she told me that she'd taken it to a jeweler to get it cleaned. She looked super smug about it, and when I asked which jeweler, she pretended she couldn't remember. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of having a reaction to it, so I just let it slide for a couple of days. A couple of days pass and I ask her about it again and she's super vague, still pretending she can't remember which jeweler and saying she's too busy to go pick it up anytime soon. So I said, "Wow, I really feel for that jeweler. Hope nothing happens to her." She asked what I meant, and I told her that my superstitious Brazilian grandmother had performed some traditional ritual on it that's usually known to curse anyone who takes or handles the ring other than the owner. She looked uneasy and asked me a couple more questions about this ritual, and I made some story up about how my mother's ring had been taken by a burglar who was crushed by a pillar of cement on his way out of the house. I totally made this entire ritual up, and I'd have a Brazilian grandmother, but obviously she did not do some ritual to my ring. The next day, my fiancée told me while I was out that she was there to clean up a bit. Lo and behold, I get home, she had already left, and find my ring where I had left it. It didn't look any cleaner than it had before, lol. A week later, I receive an abusive call from her saying she'd been in a minor car accident and she was blaming me and my witch doctor grandmother, saying she was now accused for having touched it. I passed the phone to my fiancé who tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical. I told my fiancé what I had told her, and he scolded me a bit because we both know how she is and I should have known she'd react this sort of way. It's been a further week since then and she refuses to talk to me and keeps slandering me to my fiancé. Overall, he sort of recognizes how ridiculous she's being, but the drama of the situation is making me wonder if the whole curse tale was taking it a bit too far. So, AIDA, ETA, grammar, verdict, NTA, update. I really did not expect this sort of response to this post. Thank you all so much for the awards. Fiancé and I have had a big chat, and he's admitted he has to step up when it comes to his mother. He retrieved her key an hour ago, and he told her not to worry about the curse because it would have no effect on anyone who touched it without malicious intent. Big thank you to the commenters who suggested that absolutely gold approach. Yup, that's how curses work, lol. You get them to believe in the curse, and then it becomes real. I had my lying, thieving, violent Bill believing that God has been watching everything he has done to hurt people, and he will strike him down if he tries to enter God's house. I started on him a week before my nephew's baptism. The day of, when he touched the door, he got a static shock. Not a big one. I got the same when I touched the door. Damn nylon regs, lol. He hasn't entered a church since, and it's been 20 years. He didn't improve his behavior much though. Please subscribe, leave comments, rate videos, and click the bell not to miss my videos.